Have you seen this? Art Clokey's sci-fi body horror claymation feature, an incisive commentary on exploitation in the music industry and the lengths a soulless tech industry will go to in attempts to copy artist success through the use of generative algorithms.
Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned.
This show would not be possible without the support of our patrons. If you would like to support our show, join us at patreon.com/haveyouseenthis. For just $5 a month, get access to our Discord and all 3 episodes every month covering movies you've never heard of, or maybe wish you hadn't. You know, Tim, that's such a good read of the movie. I think we're actually done. We can knock off for the rest of the night. You nailed it.
All right, our shortest episode. Why was a Gumby movie 90 minutes? That is interminable for claymation.
Yeah, I appreciate their commitment to the bit because...
Of being a full-on movie?
Well, and, you know, like, stop motion is difficult, so respect. But how long are, like, the Wallace and Gromit, like, featurettes?
Yeah, it's pretty threadbare. Not least of which because narratively, the movie lacks a lot of, like, linking scenes, which I can kind of understand because I don't want to spend a couple of days, claymating, whatever the term is, claymating Gumby, like, walking down a hallway or, like, using a computer.
Sure.
Or something like that. It's like, so it's missing all the boring stuff, but it also, like, wait, where are we in time? How did we get here?
What are we talking about tonight, Tim?
We are talking about Gumby 1, the Gumby movie, Gumby the movie, Gumby 1. And that is one of those, not since Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime League have we had a more, a title more sure of itself.
Gumby, the Clay Awakens.
The audacity to call this Gumby 1. Not even Star Wars started with episode 4. They're like, hey, we're just going to do a one-off of this pulp sci-fi whatever thing. If it has legs, sure.
Gumby Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a movie that is not without its charms, but it is also a bit of an odd duck considering it came out like the same year as Toy Story, the first one. It was in production for quite a while, and they had difficulty getting distribution for it. I believe it was in production for about 4 years, from 1988 from 1992. And it took them a while to find an independent distributor that would, as it turned out, kind of hurriedly shove it out in a limited release and cause this movie with a not insubstantial budget to pretty much flop. But...
Right.
The Gumby stands have grown to love it, for what it's worth.
It is very much in the spirit of Gumby, so good for it. But yeah, it recouped about 2% of its budget.
Right.
Which, just like, that's, I think I know no one wanted to front the money for this.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a shame because, you know, Gumby is pretty perennially popular. And
yeah, he's a nice kid. He goes on safe adventures. He sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, when Art Clokey, the creator of Gumby, kind of revived the Gumby brand, for lack of a better term, in the late 70s, early 80s, like there was a massive public response. Like people were coming out to all his like special screenings of like Gumby shorts, and they were super into it.
Yeah, I like Gumby. He's nice. It's benign.
It's so innocuous. It's like you can't fucking get mad at Gumby.
Yeah, it's low stakes drama. It's before we had like cozy horror and cozy mysteries and cozy whatever hyphenates. We had Gumby. Gumby is cozy Gumby.
Yeah, like that's just Gumby. Like there doesn't need to be there isn't like a subgenre of Gumby. There hasn't been a gritty reboot of Gumby. No one would want that because they just want Gumby to be Gumby. They just want a little green dude and his equine friend.
Yeah, his put upon horse friend. For someone who is by his very nature very malleable, he's actually been quite resilient. and consistent in his form.
Well, it's because he can, he's moldable and he can like change shape, but he always returns to, I guess, the prototypical Gumby shape. Maybe that's the Gumby one.
Right, yeah, he has a strong sense of who he is. And I think kids, you should all strive to be more like Gumby.
I think that's why, and I say this with affection, not opprobrium, but I think that's why, as I said to you, Gummy. No, that's...
He's not gum, damn it.
That's Pinkie Pie's pet crocodile. Gumby is a little bit of a prototypical only child, which was...
Well, you would be the expert on that.
Right, and it was canonically true up until the 80s when they gave him a little sister called Minga.
Oh, is that like a... was it 8 is Enough when they bring in, Oscar or Charlie or whoever that kid was?
Cousin Oliver, yeah. Yeah, well, based on the timing, I think Minga was probably an oops baby. Like Gumbo and Gumbo were trying to, like, put the spark back in their marriage and, like, oops. Mm-hmm. Well, Gumby's gonna have a little sister. He's, like, 18, but you can't get an abortion in Gumbasia.
Right, yeah. It would be an affront against Clay.
It would be an affront to Davy and Goliath.
Right, yeah, very conservative neighborhood. I also think it's interesting that Harmony Korine did that documentary on Gumby's dad in '97. Isn't Gummo about...
It took me a minute, but... Yeah, it's...
Harmony Korine, big Gumby fan.
I appreciate him committing and, like, casting all plasticine actors.
Right,
maybe that's why people found the movie, like, kind of off-putting, because... Like, did you see the people in that movie? Jesus Christ. And now I'm talking about Gumby the movie.
Yeah, they're human adjacent, a lot of these models. Yeah,
they're fine. Like, it feels like punching down to criticize anything about Gumby because it's so clearly a labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
And the medium is so time-consuming. Like, you really have to be into what you're doing to animate something in clay.
It's very analog, too.
Yes.
Which also, you'll pick up an anti-tech strain through these Gumby movies.
Yeah, like, it's an interesting ambiguity because, like, there's a lot of usage of technology, but it very easily, like, surges out of control.
I mean, any sort of conspicuous technology in Gumby 1 is used to ill effect.
Yeah, like down to the robot waiters.
Right, yeah, because, and this isn't just, invoking, Robot Rumpus from Mystery Science Theater. I'll put one in the swear jar. But yeah, robots are kind of a perennial underclass of malfunctioning servants. They do a lot of the labor in the Gumby world, but they also do it poorly. So there's kind of an anti-AI strain going through this as well in the movie from 1995. Very prescient.
Yeah, which I fuck with.
Right, yeah. To say, in our claymation movie, be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't hand over all of our jobs to automation. Just saying.
Yeah, like, I mean, could it be construed as anti-labor that the ice cream shop has robot waitstaff? Especially because, like, they just end up getting abused by Prickle.
Right, yeah. The robots are a contentious underclass in this. They're ready to revolt, and maybe that is, I don't know if that prefigures or is a result of Gumby and Pokey's massacre of the wind-up robots who they hired to do yard work. It depends on what which side you want to frame this on. Are robots an exploitable underclass, or are they here to undermine labor and should be destroyed?
I'm sure that...
Yeah, hit us up on Blue Sky and let us tell us what you think.
I'm sure that Art Clokey read some Asimov. Like, there's no question. Because that was around the time when my dad was also reading science fiction, the 60s.
Oh, okay.
Back when he used to
I hate
read.
it. Wow. What's that like?
Who knows? You know, I look at those little marks on the paper and like my head just starts swimming.
Yeah, everything to me is like reading the dosage instructions on a packet of medication. It's like I'm not unfolding all this.
It ain't worth the time. Just give me the tablets and I'll chew them, whether or not you're supposed to chew them.
Yeah. So there's an anti-tech strain going through, I want to say, all of the Gumby works. This one in particular, they stop at a diner. There's the robot waiter that gives terrible service.
Yeah.
Prickle, who is their dinosaur friend, like he's assaulted numerous times. Gumby is summoned over to a music industry agent's table forcibly by one of the robots. We've seen earlier in that same scene their dog Lowbelly be replaced by
tech,
by a robot doppelganger. Yeah, like you will literally be replaced by a robot is the movie's thesis if you aren't careful.
Yeah. Now, some of you who are conversant with the Gumby universe might be asking the question, who is Lowbelly? Because as when I discussed this movie with Tim, I offhandedly mentioned Gumby's dog. And how,
I said who is Lowbelly?
Yeah, because I was like, oh yeah, like the blockheads, like fucking blockheads, but we'll get to them.
Jeez, yeah.
They kidnap Gumby's dog, and you were like, not Nopey.
Yes.
Well, and you proceeded to explain to me the character of Nopey the dog.
Mm-hmm.
The dog.
Yeah, Nopey only replies in the negative.
Yes.
He speaks one word and uses it on all occasions. He's a very headstrong dog. He's much like yours, a huge nuisance.
Well, and it occurred to me as we were discussing the dogs that, well, of course, Nopey's not in Gumby the movie because surely he declined to participate.
Yeah, that follows. Absolutely.
Nopey knows his rights.
He's like Hugo Weaving being asked to be in the fourth Matrix movie. Nope.
Nopey is like such a good name for a dog too.
Yeah.
I think
that's
my next dog will be called Nopey.
Oh, hopefully your current dog will die soon.
Leave my doggy alone. Oh,
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna cut this out and like give me don't for once in your life, Tim, be nice to me about this. The other night, I dreamt that somebody talked me into putting Reggie to sleep in like some kind of suicide pod.
Okay.
And then when they took him away, and then it hit me like, I was like the the This Is Fine dog, like realizing that the entire room is on fire and being like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't want to kill my dog. Why am I doing this? And I had to go like rescue him. And so I found him in this like room full of like just rows and rows of like suicide pods.
Jeez, rows and rows.
Yeah, and he was just,
Fuck me.
strapped in the pod looking up like, I don't know what's going on, but, And then I had to save him. And I woke up and I was so upset.
Well, yeah, the dog isn't sentient enough to understand its own fate.
Yeah, like...
It does not know death as we do.
Yeah, it was so like... And it's an out-of-character dream for me to have, but like...
Because it's empathetic?
Well, no, it's just that, like... I don't usually dream about the dog. like lately I've been dreaming about my dad quite a bit.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh yeah, my dad's dead. Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least you didn't put him in one of those suicide pods. Yeah.
Okay, so end cul-de-sac. Yeah. But we were speaking of Nopey. But in this movie it's Lowbelly.
Which, I mean, he's a pale imitation. Like, Nopey had character. Lowbelly is merely there to cry pearls? Wait a minute.
Yeah, and this is
your magical realism. In the story about a sentient piece of clay, his talking horse friend, a dinosaur, and some kind of mass of, like, whale goo that hangs out with them, who is also a girl.
Who can also fly, by the way.
Right, yeah. Like any whale. It's a sky whale.
Is that what goo is? I thought she was like a mermaid or something.
I want to believe, and again, this is one of the things that's like, I don't know, get Bitter Corella to like give us a definitive answer. But from my close reading of Gumby 3D comics, Goo is a whale.
I mean, she is cetacean shaped, I guess.
Yeah, maybe she's just like a giant blob and is shaped like a whale so that she'll have a face, but I don't know, she presents whale in my opinion.
And she does appear to be an air-breathing mammal, so it makes sense that she's walking around on land.
Point two. A whale that flies.
Sure. I mean, whales are fairly aerodynamic or hydrodynamic?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes. Well, Goo is, yes, dynamic as a character.
Right. And there is a point in the movie where Prickle offhandedly mentioned that he didn't know what he was until he read a book about dinosaurs.
Yeah. I mean, the Gumby is big on education and libraries and reading.
Yes.
And understanding the nature of the self.
And, like, I'm not going to make the argument for it because I'll leave it to others. Maybe Bitter Corella. But that made me realize, like, oh, there's probably, like, a trans reading of Gumby in here somewhere.
I'm sure.
At least for the like side characters. I mean, Gumby is very secure in Gumby's identity. So
yeah, Gumby is clearly an only child, like you say.
Yeah, and that he often like fucks up horribly, but he has indulgent parents to constantly bail his ass out.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't talk any shit. Like, I've lived this existence. And somebody might say, like, hey, but what about Minga? You know, if there's enough years between siblings...
Yeah, it's like they aren't even...
Quite often, those siblings are de facto only children.
Right, yeah, the dynamic is completely different.
Imagine the tantrum Gumby probably threw when he found out that his mother was pregnant again.
I mean, Gumby was, like, at college when that happened.
Yeah, he's like, oh, Christ, Mom and Dad, seriously? At your age? God damn it. All right.
Well, you know, empty nest. It's, yeah.
Can't tell you what to do, but, you know, I'm not going to take care of her.
Yeah, Gummo and Gumbo, whatever, Gumby's mom, they'd formed the beast with two backs. Literally, they'd mushed themselves together. Which can happen, because that's what happens when Pokey and Prickle and Goo, they're in some kind of minor mishap, and they end up all wadded together.
Yeah, that's a weird plot cul-de-sac in this movie, because you think that anything having to do with that might figure into the movie later, but that's not how the world of Gumby works. Like,
I disagree. I think that this scene is meant to establish that mad science can be done with clay. Because it does come up later. Yeah, it is there to present that that these characters are perfectly malleable without it distressing them. What happens in this scene is they basically have a medical experiment performed on them.
Yeah, and I didn't see them sign in any consent forms or anything beforehand.
No, it was only after the fact. It was it is the immortal clay of Henrietta Lacks kind of situation. Where the three of them go in for medical treatment, and then at the end, the doctor's like, oh, this one's on us. This is more of an experiment that you did not consent to.
Wow, yeah.
Because they all get bunched up to the point where the doctor's like, I don't know, these three are fused together. Like, we might just have to euthanize them. But
how do you euthanize clay?
By putting it in a kiln, obviously.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So yeah, this is when we're getting into the cozy body horror segment of Gumby 1. Because even the doctor, he puts him in a CAT scan, which of course is shaped like a kitty face. And in the CAT scan, the clay is split. They're split in half to show their guts, basically.
Yeah, and they appear to be rotting inside, which is weird.
Yeah, well, the doctors, because, well, you have three colors. You have red, yellow, and blue, and I don't know what that makes, like orange.
Brown.
Brown. Okay. Yeah, they're missing the key component. They're missing Gumby. Oh man, that's a plot point there.
Yeah.
Because if
Well, half the movie is looking for Gumby.
Yeah, because Gumby does what Gumby wants, right?
He's basically the Poochie of the movie. Whenever Gumby isn't on screen, everyone should be asking, "Where's Gumby?"
Yeah. It's Gumby's world, and we just live in it. But the three of them are all fused together, and some of the clays become so fused that it's turned this black, like rotting color because the yellow and the red and the blue have fused together. But getting into the body horror, they put them into an iron lung. I don't know, like an oven. And then they put them in like a centrifuge, and they do like a reverse The Fly, the Cronenberg's movie, to then split them back into their separate clay. Only they make too many of them, and then they have to fuse them back together. It's horrifying if you consider the implications, but if you're watching this, you're probably 7, so it's above your head.
Right. It's amazing what your mind accepts as a child. I realized this rewatching Yellow Submarine in college. And I was like, this movie's fucking weird, man. At 13, I was just like, oh yeah, it's the Beatles. Cool.
Right, yeah, because as a stupid adult, you're like, what are the ethical ramifications for these medical experiments performed on these sentient beings that have been fused together? And how do you, once you defuse them and then you split them up into separate parts, like which is the real prickle anymore?
Yeah, and an equine, extinct theropod, and maybe a whale.
Right. a whale, or possibly whatever the T-1000 is made of. But yeah, as a dumb adult, you interface with it you approach it on that level. But as a smart kid, you're like, haha, it's clay. You can do all sorts of crazy things with clay. This is fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they managed to get them unstuck, which is great. And
after inadvertently cloning them.
Hey, clay is clay, what are you going to do? Because Gumby has a myriad of horrors left over for the third act of what clay is clay.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, then the plot gets back on track, and it's like, where's Gumby? What's Gumby doing? Let's all find out what Gumby's up to. Because Pokey is he's kind of the fifth wheel. He's sort of I should have mentioned Gumby's in a band.
The Clay Boys.
Yeah, he's Gumby and the Clay Boys. He's living out a Marty McFly fantasy right here.
Imagine if they played a double bill with Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Ah, yeah. But Pokey's feeling kind of left out. He's sort of the Sid Barrett, I guess, in the situation.
He's kind of being a little bitch about it too.
Yeah, it's just one day they just don't they neglect to pick up Sid when they go to the gig. They have left Pokey out to pasture, is what I'm saying.
Pokey's gonna be a pasture pet.
Yes.
Turns out he can't be ridden.
No, yeah, he's way too disagreeable.
I mean, that fits with ponies because ponies can be real little shits.
I mean, you don't have to tell our listeners that.
And and Pokey is definitely a pony because he is under 14.2 hands.
Right. He's his pony pal Pokey.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is canonical that yes, Pokey is a pony, which is why he's so difficult.
Imagine if he were a donkey. He and Gumby would just be arguing all the time.
Yeah, I'd like to see a Gumby where it's just him and Pokey like on a long car trip, just no longer interested in each other's company.
Well, I mentioned Smiling Friends earlier, and there's a whole episode where it's just them landing at a Brazilian airport and then realizing that Pim forgot to book their hotel. And then they have to like talk it out.
I've had a Vegas trip like that.
Yeah. And then ultimately just realize that their best bet is just to fly back because everything's booked up. And that's the episode.
Speaking of cul-de-sacs.
Yes.
So the plot gets back on track because Gumby is he's a consummate performer. He doesn't just shred on the guitar. He knows that he needs dances to put on a good show, because for some reason, Gumby and the Clayboys are putting on a concert.
Right, because
for whatever reason.
They have a band, but then they get the idea to do a benefit for the farmers who are going to lose their farms. Thanks to usurious loans given to them by the blockheads.
Exactly, and it's kind of a repeated beat, because we see that they're going to put on a show, and then they get the idea to put on a show that's slightly different.
Right. Yeah. Like it's and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Prickle Goo and Pokey's multiple compound fusion incident. I think a lot of this has to do with like kind of the personality of Art Clokey, like the tendency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the tendency toward the wandering narrative and the weird little cul-de-sacs. And also, like, it hit me, like, the third or fourth time I saw the scene where they all fused. I was like, oh, shit, that happened to me when I did mushrooms.
We really should dedicate an episode to interrogating the character of Art Clokey.
Yeah, because there's a lot of material.
Yeah, because his fingerprints, figurative and literal, are all over the Gumby movie. Right,
because there was a point where Clokey kind of stepped away from the Gumby show, which started in the very early 60s. So later seasons, he wasn't really involved. Like, his family was kind of taking care of it while he was, I don't know, fucking hippie girls. And
maybe, traveling across India, shaving his head, coming up with the idea for the Macintosh, whatever.
Yeah, like, doing, like, oxygen therapy, like, just lots of weird shit. The Gumby movie is entirely, like, an in-house production, and that's also why it feels a little bit out of time. Not just having been released well after production was completed, but because it feels so strangely siloed. And it's not like Clokey is a guy who like just like sits in his house and doesn't do anything. He's a pretty worldly guy, but it all seems to be like Clokey's world is Gumbasia. Like... It's all like this. It's all like the feel of the Gumby universe. This innocuous universe where you have adventures, but nothing is too dangerous.
Yeah, it is always 1962 in Gumbasia.
That's exactly right. There's an intact nuclear family. It's crazy shit.
Right. Yeah. So it perhaps is pursuing an audience that no longer exists, and it is out of step with time.
And it's possible that might have a lot to do with the perennial appeal of Gumby. Because while it does seem slightly out of step with what Bitter Corella would call our modern agogo times, it is comforting because it's always the same.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's your cozy body horror of the Gumby movie.
Yeah, like you can mash the clay together, but you can magically pry it apart. Like, if I mashed Prickle, Goo, and Pokey together, I would just end up with brown clay. But in the universe of Gumby, they can be separated again, good as new.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a perfect object lesson into the ethos of the Gumby cinematic universe, which is any action can be perfectly undone.
Yeah.
You can inevitably return to the status quo. Like, there is no risk to any of the events that transpire in any of these stories.
Yeah, and I'm hardly an expert on Eastern thinking, but this was something that Clokey was deeply interested in. He was a devotee of a guru called Sai Baba. In fact, thanks him at the end of the movie, or the movie's dedicated to him.
Yes, a Hindu guru and cult leader. Love all, serve all.
Yeah, and it does make me wonder, like, if the kind of cyclical nature of Gumby is just the kind of thing that you would expect to get from someone like Art Clokey, where everything can reset because everything is like one big cycle or mandala.
Right, yeah. Gumby will return as Gumby in Gumby.
Gumby will return.
The movie.
In Gumby and Pokey versus the World Crime League.
The World Clay League.
The clay is not enough.
Gumby's 11. I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely a particular non-mainstream philosophy behind these Gumby movies that does make them what they are. It is in their very nature. It is infused in their clay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you couldn't you couldn't take that out any easier than you could make Gumby not be green.
Absolutely.
So Gumby's in a band, right?
Yeah, and I just know that everybody in this band listens to Dream Theater.
The style of music that they perform, because they're basically a jam band.
Yeah, but like in a butt rock kind of way, not like a hippie kind of way.
I don't know. I mean, I would say they're maybe like Fish adjacent. Maybe Grateful Dead, Joe Satriani, Buckethead kind of fusion.
Just like
band.
Like wanky guitar based instrumental seems to be what they do, and to be fair, the people love it.
Right.
Because they even have groupies.
Yeah, every guitar solo is followed by a different guitar solo, and that is their music.
And I know that there are people out there who love that kind of thing.
Yeah, they aren't indulgent enough to give the drummer a solo, thank God. But, like, no vocals, no melody, just, like, a blast of shredding. Let's kick it over to the guy who's going to shred in a different way.
Yeah. And also...
And then Gumby will do some dance that would be horrific if seen by a human body.
Yeah, like he can absorb his guitar into his body without stopping playing it.
Yeah, because, Gumby has perfect control over his clay. Like, you got to stop thinking in human terms. Like, he's a sentient wad of clay. All of Gumby is Gumby. He has absolute control over himself in that way.
God, we're fucking lucky that Gumby has such a sunny personality.
Right, yeah, it would be horrifying if you considered it. Like, if you recorded an episode and then were up late afterwards, considering the ramifications of what living like Gumby would actually mean. He can turn himself into, like, a hoop. He can melt himself into a puddle and then come back. Like I said, he's kind of a T-1000.
Yeah.
So he shreds, and he does a dance that is so, I don't know, maybe... Like, you lose sanity watching it. It'll break your mind to see an ostensibly human figure contort itself into these shapes. It gets so off-putting, so jarring, so otherworldly, so indescribable that Lowbelly sheds a single tear and it ossifies into this $2,400 pearl.
What a good dog.
People are weeping, or people and animals are weeping at the beauty and transcendence of Gumby's performance.
Yeah, it's like looking upon the face antics. Of God.
Right, yeah. He's a really good dancer.
Now I have that Sister Sledge song in my head about how that one guy is the greatest dancer.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
I mean, yeah, this is only a tribute. And Gumby, of course, he appropriates other cultures to make his money. He I shouldn't say that. That's unfortunate. That's disingenuous. That's in bad faith. But he goes and, he's a student of the world, as Art Clokey is himself.
Yes.
He walks into a book on Native American dances, and he observes a ceremony. He should check out the other cultural touchstone, the song "Land of a Thousand Dances."
And they can definitely play that because I think that's the song that Dave Barry described as having a guitar solo that any human could learn, or even an advanced fish.
That does fit, yeah.
So yeah, it might be a little
style, yeah.
It might be a little too kindergarten for them, but considering like what they get up to with their stage show,
yeah,
there's a lot of production value.
Right. The stage show is so crazy they had to remove 2 pillars from the gazebo where they play. Don't think I didn't notice that, Art. Because you need to position the figures.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so Gumby isn't so westernized. He's not so insular in his cultural influences. He learns about whirling dervishes. He consults Native American dances. He brings a lot of he's sort of the Paul Simon of its time.
Right. And sort of creating controversy by bringing over the traditions of another culture to a wider audience. Mm-hmm. He's a disruptor.
So, right, yeah. So it's Paul Simon, it's Talking Heads, and it's Gumby and the Clay Boys.
Yes. And much like David Byrne, Gumby is a completely asexual frontman.
And also a bit of a spurg. Oh, did I say... I'm blanking on the name of the guy from Talking
David Byrne.
Oh, yeah. Did I say David Byrne is a bit of a spurg?
I like leaving aside.
That's like saying the sun is slightly warm.
And folks, he's Tim's allowed to say it. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, if you don't want me to say it, I won't say it.
Well, whatever. But I read Gumby as like pretty neurotypical.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I read Gumby's parents as absolutely exhausted having to deal with this kid.
Right, but like in the way that you get tired dealing with a perennial extrovert who's always getting into shit.
It's amazing that he has even 3 friends.
But like the reason I mentioned David Byrne is because the other night I was watching Stop Making Sense on Max, and I'm noted for my affinity at times for musicians, especially very like adept musicians on stage. But watching David Byrne, I was like, yeah, this is like a great concert, like a great act. Like I really appreciate the bits he's doing, but I've never been like less attracted to the front man of a band. Yeah, he's like the least sexy front man I've ever seen.
And that's unusual because I mean you would fuck a robot, like a literal robot. So
oh yeah, I would love to live in Gumbasia because there are just robots fucking shit up everywhere.
Yeah, you can have your whole robot underclass sex slave fantasy.
What are the ethics of hitting on the robot waiter?
Hey, if he's not programmed to say no, why even bother giving them free will?
I'm breaking his programming.
Yeah, they don't have choice in the matter. I once wrote an essay on that. It was middling to well received.
Yeah. Hey, it held up in my opinion.
That's true. Yeah. So we have a lot of plot threads going on, not just the affinity for jam band music, which I think is fitting Art Clokey's character. We have the anti-technology messaging in this. And then we also have the blockheads, who are the consistent antagonists of the Gumby world.
I really hate these guys.
Right. Well, as you very well should, because they're grasping tech bros in this.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, by any other measure, that is the anti-technology message in this is mostly about the dangers of AI and of trying to commodify creativity.
And let's not forget that not only is it the blockheads who run the loan business that's fucking over the farmers.
Right, yeah, 25% interest rates. Like you get better interest rates on like a sharecropping outfit.
Yeah, and they also appear to drive a Bentley.
Yeah, they drive a fancy sedan, which is a little too big for them, but whatever.
Yeah, like and like ugly in that way that like cars that are unobtainable for the greater public are. Like if you ever go like in my area, like you go to Westlake Village and then you start seeing like the really high end cars, and occasionally you will see like a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, and they're always hideous, and they always have that same like gigantic ass like high
they're
grill.
Too big.
Yes.
Yeah. It is a bloated car.
Yes, and because the blockheads are ripping off working men and women, they can afford this shitty ass car. Today they would be driving around in a Cybertruck.
Oh, yeah, talking about ugly, oversized, bloated vehicles. Yeah, that's a perfect example.
And then they'd take low belly and they'd be like, "God damn it, there isn't enough cargo room to put him in there."
Right, we got to put the tailgate down. He's got to ride shotgun. Yeah.
Oh no, like the door panel fell off. Fuck.
Yeah, and that happens because the inciting incident for all this claying about is they enter the Down on the Farm book, which each book is kind of its own self-contained dimension. I don't even have time to unwrap that. But
I like when to briefly divert for a minute. I like when Tara and Ginger, the groupies, are looking for the right farm book and they go into the wrong one. It's like Old MacDonald's Farm or something. And they just end up in a barnyard that's filled with animals. And it reminded me so much of like the little like homestead you and I built in Minecraft, where you'd walk out the door and then there would be like 100 chickens in the pen.
Just staring at you.
Yeah, like, oh shit.
I do want to see what happens when Gumby walks into Animal Farm, though. I want to explore the ramifications of that story.
I want to
like he comes in there, one moment and everything's fine. Then he comes back and he's like, "Wait, what happened to that horse?" Things of that nature.
I don't think I'll tell Pokey about that.
Yeah, better not. So they're down on the farm, which again, sounds like the opening of a porno. And this is where they find the blockheads, just like Thanos, just tearing ass across different worlds and fucking shit up. That's where they offer their usury rates of 25% interest on loans, so that they can foreclose on farmers,
on senior citizens, no less.
Yeah, senior citizens,
the vulnerable.
No less. Right. Yeah. And from that, they pass out foreclosure notices because people can't keep up with their loans. And from there, Gumby and his friends get the idea of saying, well, let's put on a benefit concert because we know the dog can cry pearls. They got the pearl appraised. This doesn't speak to the effects of flooding an economy with a commodity and then thereby devaluing it. It's not that kind of movie. But
Gumby, you fucking dumbass.
Right, yeah. He's going to collapse the collectible pearl market. But they realize, hey, if we put on a benefit concert for these farmers, maybe we can keep them from being foreclosed on. So at that point, Gumby pretty much invents Farm Aid.
And this is in line with Gumby's personality, especially like the only child personality, where he's impulsive, he's somewhat cosseted from consequences, but overall means well. Like how he deals with Pokey in the beginning when he realizes like, oh shit, like Pokey's really down because I haven't been spending time with him. That's very only child, to be just like doo-doo-doo-doo, like, oh wait, like it's suddenly really obvious to me that my friend is feeling a negative emotion, and then you feel bad about it.
Yeah, you don't notice that people have their own feelings and internal lives.
Speaking of,
because why would you?
So, I mean, I'm just saying it must have been a huge adjustment when Minga came along. That could not have been easy for anybody in the Gumby family.
Pretty much, yeah.
But and the other thing about the whole like loan situation with the farms is that, as an aside, Prickle actually says it just shows you that to borrow money is dangerous. And it's like, yeah, dude, because we can all like pay cash up front for like an entire fucking farm.
Yeah, and on top of that too, Prickle, I mean, like, the economy is based on borrowing money. Like, you can't make blanket statements like that. I mean, true, he's a dinosaur and he's got a brain the size of a walnut, but...
And that, I mean, that is Prickle's personality, is to be, like, a little bit of the, kind of like the cranky skeptic.
Yeah, well, he's like, hey, I'm just saying it like it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, people say I'm an asshole, but I'm just honest.
Yeah.
I'm just blunt. I just say what we're all thinking.
Right, yeah.
Prickle gets punched a lot, is what I'm saying.
Prickle has a lot of email forwards that go directly to spam. I believe that Prickle would have a newsletter.
And Prickle would have been mimeographing stuff up until, like, 2005.
Well, he paid for that mimeograph machine, and damn it, he's going to use it.
Yeah. He would hang out with Dale Gribble.
Yeah. Yes, Prickle is the Dale Gribble of this this quadrilogy. What would you call this, Jen?
That's a tetralogy.
Whatever. This polycule.
But yeah, so they're gonna save the farms by putting on a benefit concert, and
Yeah,
they do.
because
Yeah, please.
Gumby realizes the same thing that Kiss knew, which is a lot of the money in having a band is merchandising. Mm-hmm. So they're going to sell these pearls off that they get from the dog by performing. Like, the concert it's a free concert. Like, it's a loss leader for producing the pearls, which then fills their coffers.
Yeah, and Gumby's like, our music is as soulless as Kiss's. Why not?
Yeah, we're just going to have, butt rock guitar solos, and, maybe they should have, shot more flames out of the end of Gumby's guitar or something.
Or he could get like a flame kit like the Blockheads put on their Bentley.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, because it shoots fire out of the back.
Hey, they got money to burn. They're the Blockheads. They exploit everyone around them.
Like, any opportunity to be an asshole, like, that's rolling coal in Gumbasia. It's just fucking shooting fire at people as you pass them on the road, like blaring your horn. Did I text this to you, or was it or did I message it to Mike? I was like, the Blockheads, strongly autistic coded.
I mean,
nonverbal.
Okay.
Hyper focused on science.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that autistic people are evil.
Right. Yeah. No. It's not that they're evil. It's that they're inhumane.
Right.
Because they don't understand.
They lack empathy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, hey, why would you care to have a pet dog? Who cares that he cries? You can make a robot version. It's the same thing. Like, one of them is married to a body pillow.
Blockhead waifu.
Yeah, if you can perfectly replicate a dog in software, then we can sell the commodified dog as a subscription service, and we can use that to fund our NFT scheme.
I don't understand your objection to this. It's the same dog.
Yeah, we simply take the dog apart, and then we create a copy of it.
And it's like when Gumby's, the fake Gumby band starts playing. Actually, I think they sound better when they're robots.
Oh, you would. I mean, it's all auto-tuned to hell, and it sounds like just disposable pop at that point, Jen. I mean, come on.
No, when they're robots, like, they're playing, like, noise rock. They're like a clay version of the Shags, and I'm like, oh, I would go to this show.
Oh, okay, so there is value in AI-generated art, is what you're saying, Jen.
Well, I mean, they're not really making music out of a limited language model. They're like robots, like, playing music. And I don't know where the music is generated. Man, this movie raises so many fucking questions.
Exactly. Yeah, the movie has a lot of deep lore to it, and it is worth considering on its terms.
Fuck,
so,
I want to take an edible so bad right now.
Right. Yeah, and I would recommend that. I mean, ultimately, if you have kids whose ages are in the single digits, or if you partake, then yeah, this movie is definitely for one of you.
Absolutely.
But Gumby's band, I mean, they put the Rock-afire explosion to shame, just in how much they rock. I mean, their music brings a dog to tears. How do you even manage that?
It's also weird that...
Because dogs don't cry normally. Yeah.
They whine.
I'll say.
Mine whines a lot.
Yeah, he sucks.
He's very vocal. It is weird that their little mini economy basically is predicated on a dog's misery.
Well, I mean, he's kind of like, if you remember the mid-90s, speaking of Gumby, if you remember the mid-90s science fiction show Sliders.
Who could forget?
Right.
The Jerry O'Connell masterpiece on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, it wasn't Jerry O'Connell, it wasn't John Rhys-Davies as the other guy, but he was a musician, and his nickname was the Crying Man, because he was always cry during his performances. It's kind of like that, and I'm sure that was a reference to something, but I'm not versed in music. I just know shitty movies and Legos.
Yeah, I don't know. It all just strikes me as like basically the dogs that walk away from Omelas.
Yeah, so the dog is moved to tears by this transcendent performance by an animated wad of clay.
By this just indulgent guitar wank. But
he just really, yeah, he loves Van Halen too.
but it isn't just, and he's like, oh, I don't really care for like the Dave era. I'm just really into Sammy Hagar, Van Halen. That dog is fucked up.
Yeah, yeah, he's not the golden goose, or he is in so many words. He's just the dog that cries.
Yeah.
And, being that it is capital that produces money, of course the blockheads must possess him.
Mm-hmm.
So doing what most capitalists do, they steal the labor of others to benefit themselves. Because after the interminable jam band of, everyone sobers up and comes to, they go to a diner, but it's no dogs allowed, so they gotta leave, not Nopi, they gotta leave Low Belly. Ugh, the imposter dog. They got to leave Low Belly in the car, and the blockheads are like, "Well, we'll steal this now, and then we'll make it legal later." It's kind of it's sort of the Uber Amazon model of doing things. Like, look, we'll just figure it out. This thing is patently illegal, but
it's easier to beg forgiveness than to ask permission.
Yeah, unless you happen to use Scarlett Johansson's voice, then you get sued. Or at least let's hope so. So yeah, they're like, look, we'll just steal this thing and then make a lot of money, and then it will be too big to fail, and people can't really complain to us because we'll be able to afford enough lawyers that we can just make any lawsuits about stealing people's dogs go away. So they steal.
Blockheads all vote libertarian, by the way.
Oh yeah, because every libertarian imagines themselves a king.
Yep.
So the blockheads steal Low Belly, and they make a robot clone of him and return the robot clone because, if, like, say, for some reason Jen's dog were to suddenly disappear and he got replaced with a Boston Dynamics dog, Jen would be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Same.
It's essentially the same thing. It's fine.
Right. It has 4 legs. What else do you want? But the blockhead's theft is even more insidious than that, because Low Belly is, I almost called him Lead Belly, but that's a different genre.
It's a dog
of music.
that plays the blues.
Oh, then he'd start crying. Maybe that's why he cries. Yeah.
It would just sound like that one track from that Pink Floyd album.
Oh, Seamus.
Yes.
That's the dog. Yeah, he sings along. So, in addition to their theft of property, what they're actually doing is helping to collapse the economy. Being poor, you might have heard, is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Not least of which because all the farmers, all these sharecroppers, whatever, who have taken out these ruinous loans. They had a way out by way of Gumby's farm aid scheme, where they make the dog cry and then they sell the pearls to get the money to pay out the farm loans. But blockheads wish to destroy basically that means of income. They want to keep all of the farmers poor, so they can't repay their loans, and thereby recouping the capital that they had loaned out to these farmers. So they get the farms, they kick people out onto the street, and they get to keep the dog that they stole. So this is typical blockhead tech bro behavior.
Mm-hmm. They have no interest in a functional, healthy community. It's all about how much can I accumulate. Yes,
exactly. Because in the end of the second act of this, you'll wonder why all this goes on, but it makes sense if you understand the blockhead's character in that way that Jen just described. Like, it isn't enough for them to win; everyone else has to lose.
Yes.
And they are. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and I do want to bring up something which I found online when I was doing heavy research for this episode. I found this on the Gumby wiki, and I got to say, okay. I hate this retconning of the blockheads.
Are they simply misunderstood?
Yeah, it says here, their reasons behind terrorizing Gumby and those around him are never elaborated on, suggesting they are simply malevolent in nature. The first issue of the 2017 comic series finally gave a concrete answer as to their motives. According to Blockhead G's inner monologue, the term blockhead is actually a racial slur, and the blockheads are treated as second-class citizens by the clay people due to the shape of their heads.
This is some...
That sucks.
This is some Cruella level retconning horseshit.
Yeah, it's
I'm not evil, I'm misunderstood.
Yeah, and like you have to kind of ignore like all the shit the blockheads have pulled over the years.
Yeah, and it's like, would that even be justified? Perhaps they could have instead organized a protest.
Yeah, and I understand that nothing is truly black and white, and that quite often that people who are criminals or who bully or harm other people, there's often trauma and pain in their own background, but it doesn't erase the fact that they create misery for everyone around them.
They stole Gumby's dog, damn it.
Yeah, and I was so upset the first time I saw this movie because not only was it hard on me seeing this dog that kind of looks like my dog, like crying, but then he gets stolen by the blockheads and they put him in a fucking cage.
Yeah.
It's so mean.
The dog isn't as fat as yours.
I hate them.
Yeah. Jen, they got bullied in school. Come on. Give him a mulligan on this one.
Dude, my stepdad really sucked, okay? He said, when you're 18, you're out of here. And then I had to move in with Blockhead J, that asshole. I just smack him all the time. Fucking dick.
My dad owns a dealership. Yeah, but the blockheads aren't interested in a functional economy.
No.
They don't appreciate the music that Gumby and the Clayboys bring into the world. They only see it as a commodity to be packaged and sold, which is why you have the metaphor of the robot version of the band performing a shitty version of their music. Because it's just like saying, hey, whatever was creative and original about that artist, can we copy that? Can we make a shittier version of that?
Yes.
This is an music industry executive's understanding of the value of music. It is, how do we make money off of this? Because increasing their wealth is the only thing that motivates the blockheads. I'm sorry if you want to retcon that in 2017. It doesn't wash, though. Blockheads are just greedy, selfish bastards.
Yeah, and like what a take in like the post-Trump era to be like, oh, these guys who are like consistently cruel for no good reason. Actually, it's because everyone's mean to them.
Yeah, you can't just have like some mendacious block of clay. It has to like be like, oh, well, both sides.
Yeah, fucking sucks. Fuck that. Where were we in the story?
We were talking about Clay Marx Das Kapital.
Das Claypital.
Das Claypital, even better. Gumby meets an agent, and the agent says, hey, the film crew's going to be here because you guys need a video. I mean, we learned from the Buggles, right?
It's 1995.
Yeah.
You should go on MTV.
Right. So, and this only happens to establish the ticking clock. Hey, news crews are expensive and they're going to be here in 2 hours. You got to wrap this up.
Yeah, and they're unions, so they're not cheap.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But, support your local union. Otherwise, you'll be exploited by blockheads and replaced with a robot.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the blockheads as a standard for the music industry. Let's see. They kidnap and clone the dog. They kidnap and clone the rest of the band because the blockheads show up in a disguised van and they put 3 of the band members in the cooler in the back, which I guess just makes them go to sleep. This is like a plot point out of like a Scorsese movie.
Well, when you slow down the clay molecules, they like almost cease to move.
Yeah, I mean, clay is less malleable when it's cold, so
Yeah.
I guess that follows. Like, they'd be frozen solid. But you have to, think of this in a non-anthropic sense.
Yes.
Yeah, they aren't humans, they're clay. If they get frozen, they just stop moving, and then they get thawed out, then they become clay again. You have to understand it from the clay's point of view. Also, body horror.
Yeah, and there's no Alcor in Gumbasia.
Right, yeah. If there's no Alcor, then how did they invent the internet?
Actually, there should be an Alcor because, like, cryonics could actually work in Gumbasia because you could freeze clay and then just thaw it out with very little damage.
Yeah, cryonics is a freezer.
Yeah.
Which the blockheads do have.
Like, you don't have to worry about, like, crystallization or perfusion or any of that stuff.
Okay, Jen.
I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. We are not sponsored by Alcor, by the way.
Hopefully someday. Dare to dream.
Yeah, for all our listeners who have $50,000 to spend on, like, a quixotic attempt to live for more than 100 years.
Right. Yeah, and the only way to do that is to be frozen in clay. This is where Gumby 1 kind of, because he walks into books. He ostensibly walks into Down on the Farm, but then he also but the blockheads walked into the book of robotics and computers and stuff like that. I think that it might just be a dust jacket over the Westworld book.
Oh, it's by Michael Crichton.
Yeah, like I want to see Michael Crichton's Gumby shorts.
Well, the blockheads were like, "Oh yeah, Michael Crichton, like he's kind of reactionary, so let's go into this book."
Right, yeah.
Let's go bully some Japanese people.
It's perfect for them. Yeah, because this is where they're making suitable clones of living beings, but they're all robots. What was I on about?
Skin jobs. Clay jobs, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is where they're making their clay jobs. It's not just Westworld, but it's a little bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because after the band is replaced by their doppelgangers, those are then sent back into the world, and it becomes kind of a subplot of paranoia of, you know, who is the real Gumby, like who's the real Big Buckle and No Buckle.
Yeah.
The other band members.
Fat Buckle, Thin Buckle, and No Buckle.
Yes, thank you.
And he indeed has no buckle.
Right, yeah. He's got no chill either.
That's why all my friends call me No Class.
What friends? So at this point, we're right. We're into the theme of, you know, who's a robot, who is an alien, who's the original, and who's the copy.
Who's being controlled remotely by blockheads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think, you know, if we're going with the Blade Runner connection, I think, like, the Gumby replicant is definitely, like, Class A. The band are more like, you know, B.
Oh yeah, they're the Leons to Gumby's Roy Batty.
Yeah, or your basic pleasure model.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, just look at the way No Buckle is shaped. He's got a flared base. The same goes for Professor Cap, who should really be called Professor Buttplug. Right. Yeah.
He figures in. He's basically only there to explain any of the science stuff.
Yeah.
He's sort of the I don't know. Would he be like Uhura
in this hard science fiction tale?
Right. Yeah. He's Crichton from Red Dwarf. He's just here for explanation.
But he talks like this.
Right. And Jen, I don't know if you mentioned it, because, you know, we're talking about the secret malevolent pullers of strings behind the scenes, and it's not that big. You don't need to be, you know, vigilant citizen to see the symbolism of one of the blockheads having a J on the side of his head.
Yeah,
oh, you're afraid to laugh at that? No. Yeah, okay, fine. You don't want to go on like a cooked conspiracy theory thread with me? All right. So anyway, the blockheads. We are in the Westworld Invasion of the Body Snatchers era of this story. Some of the other things that are worth pointing out about the blockheads' world of computers and robots is, and this gets back to the thing about why are they needlessly destroying the economy of Down on the Farm?
Well, it's like those hedge funds that come in and buy up like companies like Toys R Us. Yeah,
they're vulture capitalists.
Yeah,
and that fits with what we see in the Robots and Computers book, because here's the thing that may not make sense, you know, on a screenwriting level. So these blockheads, they have their luxury sedan, they have their Bentley, they already have a predatory loan business, they have an advanced robotics lab and a supercomputer. why are they going through all the trouble of copying a dog so they can kidnap it so it can cry pearls? But that's the lesson, though, is that they are venture capitalists, and wealth is never enough for them. They must constantly grow and consume everything else around them. Why are we kidnapping a dog to steal pearls? Because we get an extra $2,400 out of every pearl we produce. I don't care what the collateral damage is. I'm a blockhead. It's what I do.
Yeah. And it wasn't because my stepdad beat me.
It's because blockheads are evil.
It's because I'm a fucking venture capitalist asshole.
Right, yeah. They're malevolent tech bros who are there to destroy creativity and commodify it.
Yeah. And, they can't just, let other people have pearls. They need to have the pearls, too. They need to have all the pearls.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a more insightful, cynical take on the music industry than maybe Spice World would have offered you. So you got to go to the Gumby movie for the real shit.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not like in Spice World they made Baby Spice cry to fuel their double-decker Union Jack bus or something.
Yeah, it was more like, hey, this comes with the territory. You got to fly to Milan and back in a day. Sorry.
Yeah, not even a whisper of disordered eating or anything like that. Sexual assault.
Yeah, or of making clones of people.
Well, except for when Scary got her tits squeezed.
Right, yeah. Or was that a clone? Who knows,
But I was going to say something else about the blockheads and and they also resemble Silicon Valley venture capitalists in that they're working so hard to solve to provide an answer to a question that was never asked.
Yeah, basically.
Everybody why wouldn't you want a robot
dog? The question
dog?
is Yeah, the question is, how can I monetize this thing that already exists? It's like that thing on Twitter where it's like, it's like Elon Musk or someone is like, I'll have some prize for inventing a technology that can capture carbon out of the air. And someone replied like, motherfucker, that's trees. Like, we already have a non-tech solution to this.
Yeah, but, how can we monetize the rot?
Right, yeah. So that's what the blockheads are on about. That's their role as the antagonist in this Gumby story.
Yeah, so I don't want to hear this blockhead as a slur nonsense. I do not give a fuck.
Yeah, no. B-head, whatever.
Right, so
And things are looking pretty bad for the band at this point. It is only because of their obsessive groupies.
Yeah.
Do we find out that something is amiss?
See, here comes the girl power aspect.
Right, yeah, that's real girl power. That's real clay power.
Yeah, and I have to point out, though, that Tara just kind of, moves on Gumby and, fuck her friend.
Right, well, hey, Tara knows what Tara's about.
Yeah, is getting that sweet green clay. Gross.
No.
But yeah, the groupies, the front row at the benefit concert, Ginger and Tara, they drive a little jalopy like everyone in Gumbasia who is in a blockhead.
Roadster. Yeah.
Although I guess Gumbo drives the fire truck, but
his own personal fire truck. Yes.
The cars are very important in Gumby, I think, because the cars tell us a lot about the people driving them, and the fact that most of the citizens of Gumbasia drive fun open top jalopies as opposed to the blockheads monstrous Rolls Royce or whatever Bentley, it is.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that Gumby and his band tool around in a jalopy like it's Gasoline Alley or something. Art Clokey's idea of a classic car is a car from the 1930s. Yeah,
this is definitely a man out of time in his own way. Mm-hmm. Like how the band manager Lucky Kleber, he looks like Groucho Marx and he talks like W.C. Fields.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
He sure does.
This feels like a movie made by an old guy.
Right,
an old dad.
Right, yeah. His most recent cultural reference is something that your dad remembers when he was a kid.
Yes. But
the groupies get the plot moving again by finding that, Gumby has been cloned. He's the evil Gumby. Although, maybe we shouldn't ascribe motivations to it. Like he's just a robot doing what he does because he's controlled by the blockheads. Goo fights the robot Gumby, and then they're able to rescue Gumby and the rest of the band who have been put on ice by thawing them out. And this is again with the body horror because they don't just thaw them out; they overheat them and then they melt.
Which is a hell of a thing to happen to you while you're asleep.
Right. But that's why you had that earlier scene where they were performing medical experiments on Pokey, Prickle, and Goo. Animal experiments, I guess it's ethical.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle room when, like, the animal can speak, I guess. I don't know.
True, yeah. How sentient is sentient. But yeah, that was what that earlier scene prefigured. It's like, hey, it's just clay. Like, we can melt them, we can freeze them, they'll come back. They get, like, fluffed up again, back into their normal shape, and that's all fine. But there's still the Robo Gumby that needs to be dealt with, and this is where the movie is inspired by Terminator 2.
Terminator 2 by way of, like, Errol Flynn. Because there's, like, an extended, sword fighting sequence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, with the recent cultural references in Errol Flynn
the
movie.
boomer crowd.
Right. But yeah, the Robo Gumby chases them in a car like the T-1000. He gets melted and I think like recomports himself. Oh no, that's another thing. But yeah, there's the whole sword fight. It goes into a Battle of the Nebula?
Yeah.
Book.
Like there are lightsabers.
Mm-hmm. They are laser swords, Jen.
There is a reference. Ah, right. Yes, it's like saying a spirit board instead of a Ouija board.
Yes.
There's appears to be a direct reference to Return of the Jedi.
Right.
When the Gumby robot's hand is cut off.
Yeah, I mean it's thematically consistent, so good for them.
Yeah.
But and also in the earlier Errol Flynn sword fighting scene, a couple of points. Gumby swings a mace, which looks actually pretty tricky to animate, so good on them.
Yeah.
They meet the Knights of the Round Table, although they're pretty much only there as like a Statler and Waldorf. Geez, speaking of dated references.
Yeah, and they all seem to be American too.
Peanut Gallery. Yeah, they don't actually interact with them. They're just like, look at these two jerks. What are they doing? But yeah, Gumby gets more body horror. Gumby gets split down the middle.
But he's basically okay.
Yeah, basically it's more difficult for... No, actually, he isn't even inconvenienced by it because Gumby doesn't walk, he skates.
That's true.
And he can still skate on one leg.
Yeah, he doesn't have to like put one foot down and then the other to propel himself. He can just kind of like...
Yeah, he just goes...
Yeah.
Yeah. The other Gumby gets shot in the chest with an arrow and it seems to hurt him, which is... I mean, he's a robot, whatever. Like, we've established that robots don't have feelings and are kind of assholes.
Oh, no, don't shoot him. You'll just make him mad.
Right, yeah. But yeah, the robot's hand gets cut off in the Battle of the Nebula set piece. Let's see. Gumby then gets hacked to pieces.
Enjoy, kids!
Yeah, he gets cut into little tiny pieces, and this is where he does his T-1000, and he remolds himself because he's not human; he's clay, and it doesn't hurt him. So kids don't have nightmares about that.
Don't try this with your siblings.
Right?
Your siblings are not clay.
Do you think that was part of the blockheads' plan? They're like, look, at some point we're going to have to mince a 10-year-old boy.
I mean, they would absolutely do it without...
Yeah, yeah, it's that thing about, like, would you press that button that would kill a stranger? And they're billionaires who are just, like, resting an elbow on it.
Yeah, like, before you finish the sentence, they would be pounding on the button.
Like, $1 million,
like,
huh?
What do I get? Okay, give it.
Yeah.
Assholes.
There's a great episode of The Outer Limits about that subject.
I swear I thought you were going to say Inside Number 9.
I haven't finished watching the series.
By the way, thanks to our patrons for enabling us to subscribe to BritBox.
Oh yeah, I've been mainlining Inside Number 9, and it has done damage to my psyche. So thank you.
As I mean, that's pretty much what those guys do. I mean,
Yeah,
just look
it's
at
lovely.
League of Gentlemen.
if you can't look away. So yeah, the movie is understandably anti-tech. Not just because of the blockheads' malicious use of it to undermine culture and to steal things from other people, but also you'll notice that Gumby, despite being cut into little pieces, is able to regain his composure. The robot, on the other hand, when he gets sprayed with Gummo's fire engine, he then melts like the Wicked Witch. Robots again being shown to be inferior to the genuine clay article.
Yes, the superior clay race.
Right, yeah. The pure clay that doesn't mix with other colors. Oh, that's bad.
Claybin's Rome.
Ugh, feel gross just saying it.
Yeah, let's not sully the world of Gumby. Let's not do this to Gumbasia.
Right.
But
but yeah, what a dark world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like, I mean, it really is like Westworld, like constant malfunctioning robots.
Yeah. That will try to cut you into pieces.
Yeah.
It's fun. So Gumby contains multitudes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to be mined from this, which is if you read it in a bad enough faith as we have, you can make a middling podcast episode out of it.
But what was I going to say about the
They melt the robot at the end.
Okay,
he doesn't give a
because
thumbs up
like
because he's not a good robot.
Yeah, it turns the way to defeat the robots is to spray them with water. Like, and Prickle discovered this when he tried to bathe the robot Low Belly.
Yeah.
And then he just dissolved into
weakness.
a fucking metal armature.
It's because they're cheap. They cut corners. They're like blockheads. They had. You didn't see it because it's on the fourth wall, but the blockheads did have a sign up in their lab that said "Move fast and break things." They're like, hey, so what? So a couple people get hit by these automated cars. We got a business to run.
Yeah, it's like when the Ford Pinto, when the company calculated that it was cheaper for them to pay people who were maimed by the cars instead
A
of
times
fixing
B times C equals X.
Instead of fixing the flaw that would eventually maim people.
What car company did you say you work for?
A major one.
The robot's defeated. The blockhead's more or less defeated. Then we get a cameo, basically, of Grooby. Grooby doesn't figure into the story. He's just there to wrap it up.
Yeah, what the hell is that thing?
It's a bee that compulsively builds scaffolding. Classic trope.
I mean, that is something that a bee would do. They like to work.
Right, yeah. Busy as a bee.
It's a working class hero.
Yeah.
Because it comes in and it kind of silos off the blockheads.
Yeah, it's sort of, David Bowie showing up in Zoolander. It's... I don't know, it's Bill Murray in Zombieland. You're like, what is the Grooby doing here? You're like, hey, it's the Grooby. All right.
This one's for the fans.
Yeah. The real Gumby heads know. And you can tell a real Gumby head because they've got that big wedge on the side of their head.
Inspired by a photo of Art Clokey's father.
Oh, okay. I thought it was inspired by Moss from IT Crowd.
No, there was a photo of... he had this old photo of his dad where he just kind of had his hair shaped in this weird pompadour, and it directly inspired Gumby's head shape. Because, as Clokey put it, without that asymmetrical head bump, Gumby is a little too phallic.
Good point.
Yeah, big green
But
dick.
Yeah, but hey, Matt Groening would agree. Like, a good character design is a strong profile, and Gumby has that.
Amen.
It's recognizable. Gumby's mom shows up to give him cookies. If you're a little kid, that's basically your idea of what a mom is.
Yeah, that's a sly aside on the invisibility of women's labor.
Definitely. Yeah. Fuck you, kids. Appreciate your mom more.
Yeah. I mean, do you know, like, the drudgery that
Any
Gumba
idea.
has lived in her life?
Yeah.
While Gumbo is just, polishing his fire engine or whatever.
She's basically the January Jones character in Mad Men. just like, my job is the wife.
Is
like, okay.
Is there a scene in a Gumby short where Gumba sits on a washing machine?
Probably. Maybe.
Oh,
I mean,
and then she hit up Gumbo and they made Minga.
Exactly.
And
see, now you know.
Yeah.
Here, go take 5 minutes and update the Gumby wiki so everyone else understands this insight.
It's canon now, bitch.
Yeah. But the blockheads defeated. Gumby and the Clayboys put on a fantastic show. The dog weeps until it is dry heaving. Yeah, it is completely dehydrated. The dog is bereft. He's got a pile of pearls. The dog is just slinging pearls all over the concert. And true to the teachings of Sai Baba, yeah. What does Gumby use the money from this pile of pearls? But he and his friends form a credit union. And this part is for the parents because you remember the blockheads were charging 25% interest rates.
Yes.
The parents will weep when you see they put a sign. Their loans are 3.5%.
That's a hell of a good rate.
That is fantastic rate. You haven't seen rates like that since you would need a global pandemic basically to get interest rates that low.
It's funny to me that Gumby doesn't just give them the money.
I mean, he's got a business to run.
I guess that
he wants a sustainable economy. He isn't trying to kill the golden goose or the crying dog, as in this case.
Yeah, it's the only child thing. Like, Gumby isn't really into, like, redistributing. Like, he's going to hew to this system that he was raised in because he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, he's means tested, and with the rate of inflation, 3.5% is fair.
Gumby's a fucking party line Democrat.
Yeah, he votes straight down the line.
Yeah, well, we won't hold it against him because he's so delightful.
Even if he is an only child.
Yeah, who plays like just endless guitar solos. Jesus Christ.
But he lives with his parents, so he's got time to do things like that.
Again, prototypical bourgeois only child. He's still living at home. You're like, well, leftist, Gumby's very sensitive.
Yeah, he has a lot of time for producing propaganda and agitprop, but because he doesn't have to go to work.
Yeah, he cares deeply about his pony and his dog, and his little bee thing.
He has a pony. This guy is so bougie.
Yeah, that's another tell. Like, he's got a horse.
Yeah.
Although I think he found Pokey on a train track somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He bought him from a kill buyer.
Jeez. This is my friend Naki.
Gumby was one of those foals that's born as a result of trying to harvest mare urine for like estrogen treatments. Again,
it's common knowledge amongst our listeners.
Well, I mean, our listeners like looking deep at the rot within the United States economy, so I mean, it's like the male, the male chicks, they just get like thrown in a box.
Right.
And then you got Premarin foals and they're just like, gotta have a pregnant mare. Nothing to do about it.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's all grist for the mill.
Yep.
The video crew does show up, thanks to Lucky, their manager. And they shoot an impressive music video.
Yes.
It's a great showcase of claymation.
The show in the barn cost them $11 million and it was directed by David Fincher.
Yeah, they brought in Director X. They had Hype Williams, do a segment. Yeah,
Chris Cunningham.
yeah.
One of those other guys. They made a DVD compilation of blanking.
They brought in Iggy Azalea to like do a guest verse.
She's mostly Clay at this point.
Right, true, yeah, and then the lower half, Nicki Minaj was in that. It's a top-notch video. I mean, like, legitimately, I think it does have a lot of good claymation in it. It reminds me a little bit of the end credits of the Lego Movie.
Yeah, it's the love of the work really shines through, and while the Gumby Movie is a little bit frustrating in its kind of meandering narrative and the way it tends to repeat story beats and concepts, like, oh, we're gonna melt the clay again. Okay.
Yeah, it has a couple of ideas, and it I don't know.
It's kind of like in the first.
It stretches them out in a way, like I don't know what if you can make a metaphor about that.
Extrudes them into some kind of long tube.
Interesting.
It's kind of like in the first.
Rolls them out.
It's kind of like in the first parts of the Caribbean movie when they go to the cave a second time, and you're like, why are we back at the fucking cave again?
Yeah, it's like this shit.
Everybody loved that movie, though, so like, what the fuck do I know? And then the screenwriter turned out to be a lunatic anti-vaxxer years later.
Wow. Well, hey, that's not what they hire him for.
They don't hire him for good
business.
takes on science.
Right, yeah.
They hire him for bloated pirate movies.
They know where their bread is buttered. The song itself is fine and pleasant. It's like something you might hear in like Mannequin or The Neverending Story.
Yeah.
It's very much of that time. It's kind of a little bit Pat Benatar-y in places.
Well, there's the kind of romantic ode to Gumby, and then the credits play out over a song about how Gumby goes this way and that, which is kind of a bop, to be honest.
I like the other one more than the credits song. I don't like that song as much, but I mean, no accounting for taste. I mean, hey, maybe there's a blockhead who can like recreate the perfect song for you by ingesting all known music.
Thanks.
Churn out some gruel that you'll love. Other things too, like speaking of contemporary artists, and by contemporary I mean the early to mid 80s. Some of the shots in the video, there's one of Gumby with the masks, like calling back to the Native American dances from earlier.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Simple Minds video for All the Things She Said.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it still has a visual flair to it.
Yeah.
So good on it for that.
And on the
I'm not even a dog and I was moved to tears.
Tim wept great pearls made of Legos.
Yes. And then I stepped on them. Oh no.
It's gotta hurt your tear ducts a lot.
Right, yeah. Well, they're just the little dots, the little round ones, so it's not as bad.
Oh yeah, the ones that can stand in as like coins. The little studs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lego, Gumby.
Yeah.
This is a child's podcast now.
Yeah. The so the story ostensibly ends, right? But we forget that there's a framing device around this, which has nothing to do with the movie, and in fact, tonally, it's jarring and distracting, because the titles of the movie come up with Gumby 1, and there's like radio chatter, like an Apollo launch. So it's like, is Gumby 1 like the name of the rocket into space? Is like Gumby 1 the eagle has landed?
Oh yeah, Gus Grissom and the other two died in Gumby 1. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, they got fired in the kiln.
Rest in peace. But
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like the opening of Contact, where you're just pulling out from the earth.
Exactly. Yeah,
with a little
it
2001
is like,
thrown in there with the slabs of clay.
Yeah, because he's a slab of clay, you can impose whatever you want onto him. He's infinitely malleable. But yeah, not only is it like the opening of Contact, of that cosmic pullout, it is also like the ending of Men in Black.
Oh yeah.
Which does the same thing, back to like, oh, our whole universe is just like a marble on some other playing field. Crazy, like, mind-bending stuff. to say that Gumby is like, this is just one story in one toy store, in one planet, in an endless universe of low-stakes adventures. It's also worth pointing out that Men in Black and Contact came out in 97, and the Gumby movie conceptually beat them to market by 2 years.
Yeah, even more considering that it was in production much earlier. Like they were germinating these ideas in like the late 80s.
Yeah, like they changed the ending of Men in Black, but like you can't like change the ending of Gumby. You're like, we already did all this stuff. Like we can't just do like reshoots. Like it's gonna take months.
I bet that Art Clokey saw that Powers of 10 short.
Oh man, I need a cigarette after watching the Powers of 10 video.
Tim's just gonna curl up into a ball.
Oh, that is some deep shit.
Yeah. And
have we linked to the Powers of 10 video?
I can do it in these show notes.
Good. We'll link to that and to the video for all the things she said.
Yeah. I like Simple Minds.
Yeah. Well, you got one.
Hello!
Go see Gumby 1, coming soon. Gumby 2. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can get 2 extra episodes every month, plus access to our growing catalog of reviews for just $5 a month by going to patreon.com and searching for Have You Seen This?
Did you know that Pokey has a British cousin?
What's his name?
Pikey.
God damn it.